Meghan Markle attended a private Netflix party in Montecito on Friday night. The event was a tastemaker screening for Beef Season 2 hosted by Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos and his wife, Nicole Evan, at their own home. The guest of honor was Carey Mulligan, BA-winning actress, lead of the show and the woman who just 2 weeks ago received a CBE from King Charles at Windsor Castle. It was Carious night, but Meghan showed up in the exact same color as the star of the evening, and the internet has not stopped talking about it since. Welcome back, my royalery. I'm the royalery. And my roguies. Let's talk about what happened on Friday night because this is almost too perfect. Ted Sarandos and Nicole Evan opened their Montecito home for an intimate launch event celebrating Beef Season 2, which premieres on April 16th. The guest list was Hollywood A-list Katy Perry, Orlando Bloom, Justin Trudeau, Oscar Isaac, and of course the star of the evening, Carey Mulligan. Now, here's what matters. The majority of guests showed up in black, white, and neutral tones. And Carey Mulligan, the lead actress, the woman the party was thrown for, wore a stunning chartreuse gown. She was supposed to stand out. She was supposed to be the center of attention. That was the entire point. And then Meghan walked in wearing a floor-length chartreuse satin gown by Heidi Merrick. The exact same energy. Well, I don't know. At a party that was not about her. Now, some people have pointed out that chartreuse is one of a spring 2026 trending colors. And that is true. Vogue call it the it color of the season. But my row, there is a difference between following a fashion trend and showing up in the same striking color as the guest of honor at her event. One is a style, the other is a statement. And if you know anything about Meghan at this point, you know which one this was. And this is not the first time. Not even close. Remember Prince Louis, Christine in July 2018. The entire royal family wore cream, white, and soft blue. And Meghan showed up in an olive green outfit. The only splash of color in this entire lineup. Different event. Different year, same pattern. Meghan has never met a room she didn't try to make about herself. And here's the detail that makes this story even more delicious. 2 weeks before this party, Carey Mulligan walked into Windsor Castle and received a CBE from King Charles, Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire. Her husband Marcus Mumford was by her side. What? It was one of the proudest moments of her career. And then 14 days later, the woman who left that very institution showed up at Car's Netflix celebration wearing the same color, pulling focus in exactly the way she always does. The internet has noticed. By the way, the word on the street is that this was not accidental. One viral comment put it perfectly. The dress code was black and white because the star of Beef wore chartreuse and she was the only one that was supposed to. Meghan's defenders say there was no official dress code. And maybe there wasn't. But here's the thing. You do not need a written rule to understand that when someone else is the guest of honor, you do not show up dressed to compete with them. That is not a dress code. That is basic manners, and the Duchess of Sausages has never had much use for those, to be fair. Let's zoom out because other party itself tells a fascinating story. Why were the hackles even there? Because just last month, and Netflix pulled its investment from Meghan's lifestyle brand as ever-streaming giant that funded all the manufacturing, all the marketing, all the infrastructure for her jam and lifestyle products. They walked away. Variety reported that 6 Netflix insiders independently said, "We are done." And Meghan's response to that, she showed up at the CEO's house and was photographed holding hands with his wife. Photographs from this evening show Meghan gripping Nicole Evan's hand while posing. And I mean gripping. The body language community has already started calling it the claw as usual. Oh, you remember the club? I sometimes remember the club. The nostalgia. You know that signature Meghan move where she latches onto someone physically as if to claim ownership of the relationship. So Nicole, to her credit, maintain a smile, but the optics are out of this world. Your business partnership is collapsing. Your cooking show was cancelled. Your brand lost its backer. And your place to show up at the man's house, grab his wife's hand and pose for Getty Images like everything is fine. That takes a very specific kind of audacity. And nobody does audacity like Meghan. A Netflix spokesperson tried to downplay the tension, saying, Meghan texts and speaks with Surrenders regularly and has been to his home sans lawyers. Okay. Sans lawyers. That is a fascinating qualifier to volunteer when you have to. Specify that you visited someone's house without your legal team and tells you everything about what the relationship has become. And speaking of audacity, let's talk about Australia, because the articles are wheels up for Melbourne and Sydney, and the reception has been, how do I put this diplomatically, hostile. Harry is scheduled to deliver a keynote at the Intrad Psychosocial Safety Summit in Melbourne on workplace mental health. Let me just say that again. The man whose staff turnover makes a revolving door look stationary. The man whose former employees have described working for him and Meghan as dehumanizing. That man is going to lecture a room full of Australians about psychological safety at work. You can't make this up. And meanwhile, Meghan is headlining her Best Life retreat in Sydney, where 300 women, I guess 300, right, are supposed to pay $2,700 each for the privilege of hearing Meghan spew about wellness in a hotel conference room with stackable chairs. And by the way, the retreat that was supposedly sold out somehow keeps releasing new tickets. And for comparison, Pamela Anderson is doing a similar event in Australia at a 2,500-seat theatre with tickets started at $85, and she has already sold over 2,000 of them. Meghan cannot fill 300 seats at 10 times the price. So yeah, here's the new angle. Insiders are now telling reporters that this Australia trip is a test run, a trial balloon. A blueprint, in their words, for what could eventually be a joint return to the United Kingdom. This is royal editor Emily Nash described it as a litmus test for what else they may do this year. And sources say that if the public reception in Australia is positive, if other hackles will use it as proof that they can still draw crowds and command attention, and that will inform whether Meghan returns to Britain for events like the Invictus Games Countdown in Birmingham. And let me translate that they are testing whether people still care. And given that over 40,000 Australians have signed a petition demanded no taxpayer money be spent on their security, I would say the early reviews are in. The Sydney Morning Herald's ran a piece with this line: Harry and Meghan are free agents, but do not be fooled. This is not a royal tour. When the country you are visiting has to publicly clarify that your trip is not official, the test run is already failing. And while Harry prepares to lecture Australians about workplace mental health, let us remember what is waiting for him back in London: the Sentinel lawsuit, the charity he co-founded in 2006 to honour Princess Diana. The charity that helps children with HIV in Southern Africa is suing him for defamation. In the High Court, they alleged that Harry and his close friend Mark Dyer orchestrated a coordinated adverse media campaign that caused operational disruption, reputational harm, and an onslaught of cyberbullying directed at the charity's leadership. Now, I covered this story when it broke on Friday, but here's what is new. Perry is about to stand on a stage in Melbourne and talk about psychosocial safety in the workplace. Is going to talk about mental health, about creating safe environments, about protecting people from harm. And at the exact same time, a charity for children with HIV is telling a Kerr that he is the one who created an unsafe environment, that he orchestrated attacks against the people trying to do the work. The irony is so thick, you could spread it on toast, and the Australian press is not going to let him forget it. This is the Markle brand in mid-April 2026. And the Chartreuse address might be the most perfect metaphor of all. Because Meghan looked at a room that was designed to celebrate someone else and decided it should celebrate her instead. And that My Royce is the whole story in one outfit. Let me know what you think about this in the comments.